mostly focuses around what you find out later in the story, a flashback. And I will go through and explain everything. So I decided to set this PowerPoint up to show docu pages as well as these storyboards, so that way there's so that way you could like see the cuts, you could hear my commentary on it, the whole 9 yards. I felt it would make it a lot easier. Most importantly, it would give more emphasis on each individual topic, and I'd be able to talk most about it, while also keeping it to a confined package, so that way I don't talk too much about it.
Thanks, previous Logan. This is current Logan, who discovered what Zoom was and enjoyed the recording features. So, back to miracles. The way I decided to try to shoot miracles was I really wanted to put an emphasis on the indie scene. I feel that the the lack of dialogue and the emphasis on atmosphere and the visual build up with with written word really was able to truly like just give me the extra oomph that I needed to really want to make this project happen. So, as I stated previously, I had a lot of ideas. So, for my first Duca page, I decided to use the Deca pages because, as I think I stated in my previous recording, that I was I really like this layout of it, and I felt that I could use it to my advantage in this PowerPoint presentation, and I can obviously make it work. So, for my first shot, I wanted to paint a picture. You have no idea where you are. The story has an odd setting of a farmhouse, and that's all you really know. But you're inside the farmhouse. It's dark, and there's only one thing you can see. It's a door. It's a wooden door, and there's light coming through it. Now, that means that we go through it. It's a front door. As we slowly pan in, and mind you, this is not a fade in. This is a cut. It's black and then light. We slowly fade in through the front door. And as we get closer to the door and our screen is engulfed in nothing but light, the door swings open, and through what seems to be us walks a man. And this man walks through. Now, the sounds we can hear are that of things that you would hear in a farm setting. It's a light ambience of, the wind hitting the grain, hitting the crops, the the insects chirping. So we fade in further, and our next shot is a low hanging shot directly from the floor of the porch, underlooking the man who has now walked out of the door and three children sitting off in a corner. The man lowers himself and lowers a jar onto the floor, and with a rack focus in shot number four, we are able to see that after focusing on the boys, we focus on a jar with a black widow and a small sack. We continue to shot five, in which we transition away from the porch to a barn that is directly across the way of the farmhouse. We have a front view of the man for the first time, who is lightly bearded and scruffy, and we see him sit down and lay for a minute. He takes the jar in one hand and passes it over to the children and sets it down and waves at them to come towards it. We close up on that angle. We want to make sure that we bring the gentleness out of the male character, who is apparently these children's father. He talks to them and he says, "Do you see it? Look at the sack. The shadows, they're going to come out now." As the sack slowly starts to break open and baby spiders come out. We cut in, slow pan to the top of the children to the jar. We want to make sure that we witness their reaction to witnessing life. We then revert to a close up of the spiders leaving the sack and crawling around in the bottom of the jar. The father begins to speak towards the children, and we cut back to his face in a close up. He tells them that this is a part of them growing up, to take care of others. It's a very important task, and it doesn't matter the creature or the size. And at that moment, a horse whines in their barn. So, an angle that overlooks the farm slowly backpedals towards the door as the man steps up, giggles, and walks away from his children towards the barn. And the children look upon the spiders with a boring yet gentle gaze. Now, this is where the story can pick up. We're back inside the barn house. There's two black walls and a door, but the door doesn't have light coming through it anymore. It's gray, it's dark, there's nothing. And soon the door slams open and three children walk through, but not so much children anymore. You can tell the time has passed and that something has happened. The wind is louder, much, much louder. The children set their items down and they begin to sit, sprawl out, and get comfortable. We hold the shot directly in the center of the hallway, watching the children as they sprawl out in their various ways. One of the children has a jar. The jar contains a spider. The second child goes over to the first child and begins to talk to him. Begins to say, "Were you nervous when all those spiders had left the jar, when they had hatched?" The third child soon cuts off from his corner on the couch as we cut back to him. Not so much in a close up, but I wanted to be a moderate shot, eye level shot. And he responds, "I was terrified. They were poisonous spiders. I could not do that. The only sounds we hear are their supplies clanking and the noises of them rather than the noises of the outside." We cut to a shot of the third and the second child talking, and they discuss what had happened. They discuss how their father had sprayed the spiders for some unbeknownst reason, and they decide to discuss what that is. Is it, was it bug spray? What was it? The third child begins to realize that it was hairspray. And the first child begins to stare off as we cut to a close up of the first child staring at the jar. The third child asks, "Hairspray? Why did we have hairspray?" The child, the first child, stands, and we get to a much closer close up to him. And he says it was hers. Now, the story itself, as mine is a little off kilter, can be really, really confusing. And the story is about a group of children that live on a farm with their father. It's not very determined if it's their biological father. It is just a man that is taking care of them. Um, they're living on this farm, and the only story that we get is that they are escaping their mother as she has gone insane. It is presumed that society has advanced as she watches on them from orbit, from outer space. At the end of these scenes, when the screen fades to black, the first song can be heard. "I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire" by the Ink Spots begins playing. This can signify to some people who know the song that the world has ended, that the apocalypse has struck. This is a story about growing up in a way that you just don't. As very vague and difficult as it is to process that very simple statement, the way that these children go from being an introverted group of kids in an area where they were allowed to roam freely, run around, and live their lives, to revert to the exact opposite in both ways. You have three children who are introverts, who have an endless world to explore. An endless world to explore. That is what the farm insinuates. However, when they re enter the home away from the farm, it's insinuated that yes, they are more extroverted, but they have less to cover and less to go and be able to do. However, their personalities shine through. They've developed a character in their own way, and they've learned from the one simple lesson of the spider in the jar. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I wish it was a little bit less lackluster, but the story was very, very short. Um, I do hope that you all have a wonderful evening and have a great night. Bye bye.